Victor Emerson's fingers trembled as he counted the last few crumpled bills in his wallet, standing in the back aisle of the pharmacy, while his 5-year-old son Finn sat on the floor beside him, tugging at his coat. "Daddy, why is that lady sitting on the floor?" Finn pointed toward the front of the store. Victor turned. A woman in a soaked trench coat sat slumped near the entrance, arms wrapped tightly around herself, her lips pale and trembling. She looked completely out of place, like someone who belonged in a glossy magazine, not shivering on the tile floor of a 24-hour drugstore at 1 in the morning. "She's cold," Victor said quietly, biting down on the ache in his chest. He'd been there to buy Finn's cough medicine, but something about the woman made him pause. She didn't look homeless. Her coat, though wet, looked expensive. Her boots were muddy but designer. Her hair was slicked wet against her cheeks, and her eyes, when they flicked up to meet his, were glassy with fever. "Stay here," Victor told Finn, pressing a granola bar into his little hand. "I'll be right there." He walked to the front, ignoring the way the clerk lazily watched him over the counter. "Miss," he said gently, "are you okay?" She blinked at him, her voice hoarse. "I just need to warm up. I didn't think it would get this cold." "You're sick," Victor said. "You need medicine." "I'll be fine," she murmured. "I just need a second." Victor didn't hesitate. He turned back, grabbed another box of cold medicine, paid with every last dollar he had, and came back to her, crouching down. "Here," he said. "Take this. There's a coffee shop across the street. They're open all night. Get something warm in you." She stared at the medicine, then at him. "You don't even know me." "No," he said, "but you look like you needed help, and I've been there." She took the box slowly, her eyes narrowing as if trying to figure him out. "Thank you." Victor gave her a small nod and turned back to Finn, scooping him up. "Let's get you home, buddy." He didn't look back. 3 days later, Bianca Prescott walked into the downtown community center, her assistant trailing behind her. "You're sure this is the place?" she asked, eyeing the cracked linoleum and the sound of kids screaming from a nearby playroom. "Yes, Ms. Prescott, he volunteers here. Victor Emerson, single father, works 2 jobs, helps run the after-school program." Bianca pushed open the door to the gymnasium. There he was, Victor, coaching a group of kids in a makeshift basketball game, wearing a faded hoodie and jeans, his dark hair tousled, his voice low and patient as he encouraged a boy to shoot. She walked in slowly, ignoring the curious looks from the staff. Victor looked over just as she stepped into the light. Recognition flickered across his face. "You," he said. Bianca's cheeks warmed. "Hi." He walked over, wiping his hands on his jeans. "You okay? Didn't expect to see you again." "I wanted to return the favor." She held up a white paper cup, hot tea, and something called a lemon ginger shot. He blinked at her, half smiling. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to. You helped me when you didn't have to. I'd had a really bad night." Victor glanced toward the kids. "I've got 20 minutes before the next group comes in. You wanna sit?" They sat on a bench by the wall, the sounds of sneakers squeaking and balls bouncing surrounding them. "You looked like you were freezing," he said, sipping the tea she handed him. I'd left a gala. Had a fight with my brother, walked out, and next thing I knew it was pouring and I was lost. I didn't want to call anyone. It was stupid." "I've made worse mistakes," Victor said. She smiled. "You didn't even ask my name." "I figured if you wanted me to have it, you'd tell me." She stuck out her hand. "Bianca." He shook it. "Victor." "I know," she said, "asked around." He raised an eyebrow. "You investigated me." "Just a bit. I wanted to know who gave a stranger medicine and didn't even ask for anything in return." Victor looked down. "I've had people help me when I didn't expect it. Sometimes you just pay it forward." Still, she said softly, I wanted to thank you properly. The next evening, she was back, and the night after that. Victor didn't get it at first why a woman like her, with a last name printed on skyscrapers, would spend her evenings in a worn-down gym, talking with a man who couldn't afford new sneakers for his kid. But Bianca was different. She made the kids laugh, she helped clean up, and she didn't flinch when Finn pulled her into a chaotic game of tag. She was warm and funny and real. She didn't care that he drove an old truck or that his apartment was above a laundromat. She listened. One night, a week after they met, he found her sitting outside on the curb as he locked the center up. You waiting for someone? He asked. She stood, yeah, you. Victor blinked, why? I want to take you and Finn to dinner. He rubbed the back of his neck. I can't afford. I didn't ask you to pay, she smiled. Let me treat you. He hesitated. Bianca. Victor, she stepped closer. You don't owe me anything, but I haven't stopped thinking about you since that night, and I don't want to pretend like I'm not interested. He looked at her stunned. You're interested. She gave a soft laugh. Very. He didn't know what to say. No one ever looked at him like that. Not since Finn's mom left. Not since he became the man with too many jobs and not enough time. But Bianca did. She saw him. Okay, he said, dinner. 2 nights later, she picked them up in a sleek black car. Finn's eyes went wide when the driver opened the door for them. The restaurant was like nothing he'd ever seen, all gold light and soft music, with menus that didn't have prices. Bianca wore a sleek navy dress and heels that clicked against the marble, and Victor had never felt more like a fish out of water. But Bianca didn't let him drown. She leaned close, laughing at his jokes, helping him navigate the wine list, and passing Finn crayons and a menu with chicken nuggets. He couldn't stop looking at her, and when she reached across the table and touched his hand, everything inside him stilled. She was a millionaire, and he was a broke father with a second-hand jacket. But that night, he didn't feel small. He felt seen. And he had no idea what he was falling into, but he already knew he didn't want it to end. Victor stood in the doorway of his apartment, one hand braced on the frame, watching Finn draw crayon dinosaurs on the back of a cereal box at the kitchen table. The boy hummed to himself, content, while the smell of boiling pasta filled the cramped space. A knock echoed from the hallway. He wiped his hands on a dish towel, opened the door, and blinked. Bianca stood there holding a cardboard carrier with 2 coffees and a paper bag tucked under her arm. She wore jeans and a soft gray sweater, her hair pulled into a low knot. No makeup, no heels, no dramatics, just her. I brought breakfast, she said. Victor stepped aside. You didn't have to. But I wanted to, she said, brushing past him. Finn looked up from his dinosaurs. Is that the lady with the shiny shoes? Bianca grinned. Guilty. Victor closed the door behind her. It's barely 8. I had a board meeting at 6, she said. It ended early. Figured, why not bring muffins to my favorite 5-year-old and the guy who saved my life with cough syrup? Victor leaned against the counter. You always show up unannounced. Only when I know the guy makes decent coffee and has a kid who likes chocolate chip. Finn raised his hand. I do. Bianca handed him a muffin, careful not to spill crumbs on his drawing. She turned back to Victor. You okay with me being here? He hesitated. Yeah, I just wasn't expecting it. She gave him a look. Do you always expect people to walk away? He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the stove, stirred the pasta shells, and added, You're not what I thought you'd be. Because I'm not on a yacht sipping champagne. Because you're here, in this apartment, with cracked tiles and a leaky faucet. Victor, she said gently, I grew up in a house where the staff outnumbered the family, but none of that ever felt like home. This place, your kid laughing, the way you looked at that pasta like it's gold, that's more real than anything I've known since I was 10. He turned down the burner, watching steam rise. You're not just curious about how the other half lives. She stepped closer. I'm not here for a thrill. I'm here because you make me feel like I can breathe. Victor looked at her, really looked. He saw the fine lines around her eyes, the kind that came from too many late nights and too many decisions made alone. He'd seen that kind of loneliness before, just never on someone like her. She glanced around. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why do you do it? The community center, the volunteering, the long hours. He leaned back against the counter. Because when Finn was born, I promised myself he'd grow up better than I did. I spent most of my childhood watching my mom work herself to the bone and still come up short. Couldn't fix it then, but it can show these kids something different now. Bianca nodded slowly. My father built an empire but never once came to a school play. You've got something he'll never have. Victor didn't know what to say to that, so he poured the coffee she brought into 2 mismatched mugs and handed her one. She took a sip. I'm not always sure where it fit in. He tilted his head. What do you mean? I was groomed to take over the family company from the moment I could read. Everything I've done, every school, every trip, every boyfriend, it's all been part of a plan someone else drew up. But lately, I've started wondering, what if I want something different? He watched her for a long moment. Like what? She shrugged. Maybe something quieter, something real, something where I don't have to pretend I'm okay when I'm not. He didn't reach for her. He didn't need to. The air between them was already humming. Finn dropped his crayon. Daddy, can she come to the park with us today? Victor looked at Bianca. You up for slides and sidewalk chalk? She smiled. Only if I get to push the swings. Later, at the park, Bianca sat on the bench with her heels off, toes digging into the mulch as she pushed Finn higher and higher, both of them laughing loud enough to draw stares. Victor leaned against a tree, arms crossed, watching them. A woman in a pantsuit passed by and did a double take. Is that Bianca Prescott? Victor didn't answer. He just kept looking at her, this version of her that didn't exist on magazine covers or red carpets. When Finn finally ran off to climb the monkey bars, Bianca joined Victor under the tree. I have to go to L.A. next week, she said. He raised an eyebrow. For investor meeting. My brother's trying to restructure part of the company. They want me there to smooth things over. You nervous? I'd rather be here, she said honestly. He looked away. It's okay if you have to go. It's not about having to. It's about choosing where I want to be. Bianca turned to face him. Victor, I don't know what this is between us, but I haven't felt this grounded in a long time. He said nothing for a minute, then quietly, I don't have anything to offer you. She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. You're wrong. You've given me more in 2 weeks than 5 years of boardrooms and penthouses ever did. Finn waved at them from the top of the play structure. Daddy, watch this. Victor lifted his hand. I see you, kiddo. Bianca tucked a piece of hair behind her ear. I'm not asking for promises. I just don't want to walk away from this before we even start. Victor turned toward her, eyes steady. Then don't. He didn't kiss her, not yet, but the look they shared was heavier than words, fuller than touch. It was the silent acknowledgement that something was shifting between them, something neither of them had planned for, but neither of them wanted to stop. As they walked back to the car, Finn skipping ahead, Bianca slipped her hand into Victor's. He didn't pull away, and for the first time in a long while, he let himself hope. Victor stood on the edge of the rooftop garden, the city stretching out behind him in a blur of lights. The air smelled like jasmine and summer rain, and the faint sound of jazz filtered up from the open windows below. He adjusted the collar of his only blazer, suddenly aware that the sleeves were slightly too short. Across the space, Bianca moved through a cluster of guests like she'd been born for it, because he supposed she had. She caught his eye and made her way toward him, her silver gown whispering against the stone with every step. "You didn't vanish," she said, offering him a glass of champagne. "I told you I wouldn't. You don't like crowds. I don't like pretending I belong in them." Bianca tilted her head. "You don't have to pretend, you're here with me." He took the glass but didn't drink. "You sure that's still what you want?" She glanced briefly at the others, her brother near the grand piano, a senator shaking hands with a foreign investor, and then back at him. "More than I've ever wanted anything." Victor shifted his weight, uneasy in shoes that pinched. "Fins with Mrs. Alvarez tonight, first time I've left him this late." Bianca nodded. "I made sure the car was on standby. If you need to leave early, just say the word." "You think of everything, don't you?" "Only when I care." He looked away, watching a waiter refill a tray of tiny hors d'oeuvres neither he nor Finn would ever be able to pronounce. "This isn't my world." "I know," she said softly, "but you're in it now, and I'm not sure I want to stay in it without you." Victor turned toward her. "You say that here, with a skyline behind you and a string quartet playing. But what happens when it's me on the community center floor again, scraping together money for new backpacks?" Bianca stepped closer. "Then I'll be right there with you, passing out pencils." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked up at the sky. Clouds moved across the moon, soft and slow. "My whole life's been about surviving. You don't just switch that off." "No," she said, "but you can choose not to do it alone anymore." The door behind them opened, and her brother emerged onto the rooftop with two associates in tow. He spotted Bianca and made a direct path toward her, his gaze flicking over Victor with practiced disinterest. "Bianca," he said, "you're needed inside. The Tokyo group wants to finalize the numbers tonight." "I'll be there in a minute, Julian." He gave Victor a perfunctory nod. "Good to see you again." Victor didn't respond. Julian turned and left without waiting. Bianca exhaled. "He's not thrilled about me bringing you here." "I figured." "He thinks I'm distracted." "Are you?" She looked at him, long and hard. "Yes, and I've never been more sure that it's exactly what I need." Victor set the untouched champagne on the ledge. "I'm not going to be your rebellion." "You're not." She reached for his hand, folding her fingers through his. "You're the only part of my life that feels honest." He searched her expression, trying to find the catch, but there wasn't one. "I don't fit into your schedule," he said. "My hours are unpredictable, and sometimes Finn gets sick and everything else stops. I don't have time for galas or flights to Paris." "Then we won't go to Paris. We'll go to the diner on 5th and sit in the back booth." Victor blinked. "You remember that place." "It was the first time Finn let me hold his hand. I remember everything." His jaw tightened, emotion creeping up behind his ribs. "You're going to miss things, meetings, deals, people will talk." "They always do, let them." The breeze lifted a strand of her hair, and without thinking, Victor reached up to tuck it back. "You scare me sometimes." "Why?" "Because I want to believe you." She leaned in, her voice low. "Then do." He kissed her. It wasn't planned. It wasn't timed with the music or the moment. But it was real, and when her fingers curled against his neck, when her lips parted beneath his, everything else blurred. When they pulled apart, the city hadn't changed, but Victor had. Later, in the back seat of the car, Bianca leaned against his shoulder, her shoes off, her makeup slightly smudged from laughing too hard at something Finn had said earlier on a video call. Victor reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. "What's that?" she asked. He handed it to her. "Grant application. For the center, we've been trying to expand the literacy program." She read it, her brow furrowed. "This is good, really good." "Doesn't matter. We need matching funds to qualify. We're short by a few thousand." Bianca didn't hesitate. "I'll cover it." Victor shook his head. "That's not why I showed you." "I know, but I'm still going to." He looked at her, the way her eyes lit up with purpose. "You're not just writing a check, are you?" "No," she said. "I'm showing up for you, for that center, for Finn." Back at his apartment, the lights were low and everything was quiet. Victor picked up the drawing Finn had left on the table, a messy sketch of 3 stick figures holding hands, standing under a giant sun. Bianca looked at it over his shoulder. "That's you, me, and him." "I know." "He gave me eyelashes." "Means he likes you." She turned to him, her voice soft. "Do you?" "I think I'm falling for you." Bianca didn't look away, then let it happen. Victor didn't answer. He just took her hand and led her inside, the door closing behind them. The courthouse was quiet that morning, the kind of hush that made Victor's heartbeat feel too loud. He adjusted Finn's collar, kneeling to make sure the buttons were straight on the boy's new shirt. Bianca stood nearby, her fingers laced together, watching the exchange with a look that held more than affection, something closer to reverence. "You sure about this?" she asked, her voice hushed, careful. Victor looked up at her. "You still think I'd let you do this alone?" She exhaled. "I never thought I'd do any of this at all." He rose, brushing a wrinkle from his jacket. "Then it's a first for both of us." The door opened, and the clerk ushered them into a modest office with beige walls and a wide mahogany desk. A judge sat waiting, glasses perched low on his nose, paperwork already stacked neatly in front of him. Bianca took the seat beside Victor, her hand instinctively finding his beneath the table. Finn, too small to understand the weight of the moment, swung his legs back and forth on the chair, humming to himself. The judge's voice was calm and straightforward. "Miss Prescott, I've reviewed the documents. Your petition to establish the Prescott Emerson Foundation is in order, and the board has approved the allocation." Victor's grip tightened slightly beneath the table. "Your funds," the judge continued, "will be used exclusively for educational outreach in underserved communities, including the expansion of the literacy program and construction of the new wing. Is that correct?" Bianca nodded. "Yes, the Victor Emerson wing. It's already being designed." Victor turned his head sharply toward her. "You never said you were naming it after me." "You wouldn't have let me if I had." The judge signed the final page and slid it forward. "Congratulations, you've just changed a lot of lives." Bianca stood and offered her hand to Victor. "Starting with yours, I hope." He looked at her, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. "You didn't have to do this." "I know, but I wanted to leave something behind that mattered, and nothing's mattered more than you and Finn." They walked out into the sunlight, the city waking around them. Victor lifted Finn onto his shoulders, the boy laughing as he reached for passing tree branches. Bianca looked up. "We should celebrate." "I've got 2 shifts tomorrow," Victor said. Bianca pulled her phone from her coat pocket. "Not anymore, you don't." "What?" "I made a call this morning. The foundation has a full-time program director position. It comes with benefits, and a salary that'll let you put money away for Finn's college." He stopped walking. "You're giving me a job." "I'm offering you the job you've already been doing, just with resources." He stared at her stunned. "You're serious?" "I've never been more." He set Finn down gently, then stepped closer to her. "You just changed everything." Bianca looped her arms around his neck. No, you did. I just gave it a name. You're not afraid anymore, he said. Of what? Of what people think, of what your family says. She shook her head. They'll catch up or they won't. Either way, I know where I belong. They didn't kiss, not yet, not until Finn tugged on Victor's sleeve. Daddy, is she going to be my mom now? Victor's breath caught in his throat. Bianca crouched down. How would you feel about that? Finn looked thoughtful. Could we still go to the park on Saturdays? Bianca grinned. Every Saturday. Victor knelt beside them. We're not rushing anything, but we're a team now, all three of us. Bianca's eyes shimmered. I think we already were. Later that week, Bianca stood in the middle of the unfinished gymnasium at the new center site. The construction crew had cleared out for the evening, leaving behind the scent of fresh paint and sawdust. Victor walked in behind her, carrying a pizza box and 2 sodas. Place still smells like a toolbox, he said. It'll smell like sneakers and chalk soon enough. He set the box on a folding table. You really did it. We did. Victor leaned against a beam. How'd you know this was the right move? She looked around, then back at him. Because for the first time, I wasn't building something just to prove I could. I was building it to stay. He folded his arms. You're not going back to the company, are you? My shares are still mine, but Julian's running point now. He always wanted it more than I did. And what do you want? She stepped closer. This, you the center, Finn, a life that doesn't come with headlines. Victor reached for her hand. I never thought I'd have this. Bianca smiled. You deserve more than this, but I'll start here. He kissed her then, the kind of kiss that didn't need fireworks or music. It just needed truth, and they had that in spades. A year later, the grand opening of the Emerson Wing drew a crowd that spilled into the street. Children ran through the halls with books in their hands. Finn gave a speech about dinosaurs and cookies, and Bianca, in a simple navy dress, stood beside Victor as the ribbon was cut. The plaque above the entrance read, The Victor Emerson Literacy Wing. For those who build with their hands and lead with their hearts. As the crowd thinned, Victor pulled Bianca close. You ready to go home? She looped her arm through his. Let's pick up Finn first, then yes. They walked down the steps together, past the reporters and the applause, and into the life they had built one choice, one kiss, one cold night at a pharmacy at a time. Nothing about it was perfect. But it was theirs. And it was forever. The late afternoon sun slanted across the floor to ceiling windows of the newly completed library at the center. Bianca sat cross-legged on the carpet, her heels discarded beside her, rolling a colored pencil between her fingers while Finn carefully labeled his latest drawing. Victor was across the room, crouched beside a shelf, balancing a stack of donated books as he arranged them by reading level. He looked up when he felt her watching. You're judging my alphabetizing skills, aren't you? He asked. I'm just impressed you got through the entire shelf without knocking something over, she said. Finn held up his paper. This is for the wall. He turned it toward them. It was a crayon mural of the building, with 3 stick figures in front, a tall one, a shorter one, and a woman with big hair and a triangle dress. Above them, Finn had written, Our Home. Bianca blinked, her throat tightening. That's beautiful, Finn. Victor rose and crossed the room, resting a hand on her shoulder as he looked at the drawing. He's been working on that all week. Finn beamed. I wanted to surprise you. Bianca pulled him into her lap. You did, completely. Victor crouched beside them. We've got space on the wall behind the desk. That okay? Finn nodded. It has to be where everyone can see it. Bianca brushed a strand of hair from Finn's forehead. Then that's exactly where it'll go. Later that evening, after Finn had been picked up by Mrs. Alvarez for a weekend sleepover complete with extra marshmallows and a promise of pancakes the next morning, Bianca and Victor walked hand in hand through the quiet halls of the center. The halls were still unfinished in places, but the warmth was unmistakable. The kind that came from more than paint or polished floors. It was the laughter echoing off the walls, the scuffed sneakers in the cubbies, the names written in careful block letters on classroom doors. They paused outside the office, the door slightly ajar. On the wall behind the desk, Finn's drawing had already been pinned up. Above it, someone had added a printed sign, "Welcome to the Emerson Prescott Center." Victor leaned against the doorframe, watching her. "You ever miss it?" Bianca glanced over. "Miss what?" "The other life, the boardrooms, the power, the control." She turned fully, folding her arms. "I don't miss the pressure, or the pretending. I guess I miss the part where people listen to me." Victor raised an eyebrow. "People listen to you here." "Only because you make them." He reached for her hand. "I make them because they should, because you've done more in 1 year than half the executives I've met do in a lifetime." Her expression softened. "You still don't see how much you've changed everything, do you?" "I didn't change anything," he said. "I just said yes when you walked into that gym." Bianca stepped closer, her hand resting on his chest. "That wasn't a yes, that was a maybe." Victor smiled just a little. "Then this is the yes." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Bianca froze, her breath catching. "You don't have to kneel," she whispered. "I know," he said, voice low, "but I want to." He dropped to one knee, the box open in his palm. Inside sat a simple ring platinum with a single sapphire set beside a diamond. It gleamed under the fluorescent hallway light, understated and perfect. "I never thought I'd get this far," he said. "But you stood with me, through every shift, every storm. You saw me when no one else did, and you loved Finn like he was yours before I ever thought to hope for that." Bianca's eyes filled. "Victor, I want to build this life with you, all of it. The chaos, the quiet, the park Saturdays, the late-night lesson plans. I want every moment. Will you marry me?" She dropped to her knees in front of him and kissed him, her answer silent but absolute. They didn't speak for a while. They didn't have to. Weeks later, the ceremony was held in the center's courtyard. Not a hotel ballroom, not a vineyard, just their space. Strings of lights hung between the trees, paper lanterns drifted in the breeze, and the laughter of children carried through the air. Finn walked Bianca down the aisle, holding her hand like it was the most important job in the world. She wore a tea-length white dress with a blue sash, something she'd found in a small boutique, nothing from a designer rack. Victor waited at the end of the aisle in a navy suit that Finn had picked out because it made him look like a movie star. The vows were handwritten, and when Victor said, "You were the stranger who saved me on the coldest night of my life," there wasn't a dry eye in the courtyard. Bianca responded with, "You didn't just give me a home, you taught me how to live inside it." Finn stood between them, holding their rings. They didn't have a first dance. Instead, they danced all night, Bianca with Finn to a bouncy pop song, Victor with Mrs. Alvarez to something old and jazzy, and finally, the two of them swaying slowly under the stars while the rest of the guests faded to the background. Much later, when the night was quiet and the last guest had gone, Victor carried Bianca over the threshold of the center's new staff apartment. It wasn't a penthouse, but it had a view of the park, a tiny balcony, and a kitchen big enough for 3. She kicked off her shoes and curled into his side on the love seat. "You know what I realized tonight?" "What's that?" "We never needed the big things, just the right ones." Victor kissed her forehead. "I knew that the moment I saw you sitting on that pharmacy floor." She laughed, "And I knew it when you gave me your last $20. They sat like that for a long time, wrapped in quiet, the kind that didn't feel empty but full. The kind that only comes when you know with absolute certainty that you're exactly where you're meant to be. And they were. Together, always.